Nick, when you think about it, consumer cellular is a business where everybody knows your name and knows exactly what you need, which is kind of perfect for this podcast.
Yeah.
So you pick up the phone or you text and you get somebody, a person who responds to you, and it makes it not only easier, but much more pleasant. Nothing like talking to a real person. For a limited time, you can sign up with Consumer Cellular and save $50 with promo code TED50.
Visit consumercellular.com/TED50 or call 1-888-FREEDOM and mention promo code TED50.
Terms and conditions apply. I can't tell you how excited I am. I get to sit with you for an hour and chew the fat.
Yeah. Well, we used to do that.
Not for a full hour. No, I mean, and not for a long time. Yeah. It's so funny that I have moments with you that kind of marked maybe your career a little bit too, but definitely my career with Magnum and 3 Men and a Baby.
I know him well.
Yeah.
You remember your Magnum episode?
Yes, completely. Literally, I do.
It was monumental for us.
I remember. First off, it was also the day you got picked up for season 2.
That's exactly right, because we had done 13 in our first season, and we were doing pretty good, but you never know.
Right.
So, and that was the day we found out. But it was also monumental because I could kind of spot you because you were smart enough. You were playing the bad guy.
Right.
Who wasn't supposed to be the bad guy, but
I was a wimpy husband. Let's tell the truth. Murderous, wimpy husband.
But often at episodic TV level, you get an actor and just they have to prove they're going to be the bad guy. And you wouldn't do that. But here was the monumental thing for the show. I remember.
On a boat.
Yeah, we're on the boat. You have to get stupid, which you did. You had a gun. So, of course, you got stupid enough to let me kick it out of your hand. And then we fight. You go over to the boat and pull out a big grappling hook.
Yeah.
And Andrea Marcovici, playing your wife, girlfriend, was behind me. And you're acting up a storm, acting your little brains out with this grappling hook. And I go, wait a minute, stop
shooting. Stop. Yeah,
I said, I can't do this. Look, I had done so many cliches by then. And we were going to get into that. I said, he's got a grappling hook. And she's back here. I got the keys to the boat. Why don't I just grab her, dive in the water, and run away? And
that's what you did.
They really freaked out. Oh, no, because we weren't allowed to change anything because the writers were back in L.A.
Dawn, right?
Dawn.
Yeah.
And
3 hours ahead, or it was hard to get them on the phone.
Why is 3 hours behind? So they were getting later, and I just said, I can't do it. And it was a seminal moment for us. I ended up diving in the water. Then I wasn't worried about you. But I think you dove in the water another way and you're run over by a boat.
Yes, I think I get mine. Yeah.
You got yours, but
you weren't.
It was so much a change in the show and commenting on those kind of cliches that helped us make our mark, I think. And it was that show. I didn't know whether you'd remember the grappling hook.
Totally.
Well, I think we had about 2 hours where we sat around and talked. Anyway, and I think within a year you were doing Cheers.
Yeah, about a year, I think. Yeah.
I know that guy.
God, I remember it happened fast for you, the mega stardomness of being Magnum. I remember you had a bus. It wasn't like a trailer. You had a bus that they could drive you.
Well, it was the big motorhome.
Right.
I didn't graduate to the rock and roll bus yet.
No,
ever.
No. But man, I remember when they would call you to come to the set, they had to bring you through throngs of people who wanted to hang out with you.
Yeah, and that's you don't go to school for that.
No.
It was strange. We did get a lot of people. What I think was a blessing for me was we didn't have a lot of press. And there was only one, there wasn't any entertainment show at that point, not even Entertainment Tonight. And the media couldn't afford to send people over. So I was kind of spared that end of it, but the crowds, we did about 5 or 6 shows, and they said, we can't shoot in Waikiki anymore. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially at night.
Because tourists who had watched you in the States would all flock to come see you. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a good gig.
Yeah.
You got to stay at the Colony Surf Hotel.
But now, see, I forgot. I was searching my brain right now because it was an amazing hotel. All the little shutters. I mean, it was an amazing.
Yeah, and you were looked out over the water.
Yeah. No, it was a nice. You're right. It was a nice gig.
And you overcame most of the cliches written for bad guys.
Here's my memory of this. Not all of them. Most of them, maybe. Here's my memory of it. And this sounds like I'm making this up. I think I didn't get cast in this particular film I'm going to mention because I just wasn't good enough or whatever. But Steven Spielberg was casting Poltergeist. We had a meeting, and he was very interested in me. And this is what I was told. Then he saw the episode that you and I shot, and he saw this weak, kind of namby-pamby husband getting the shit kicked out of him by, rather tall, handsome Tom Selleck. And there was an overhead shot that I was not, this was when I discovered, I'm balding. I have an actual full-on bald spot.
I don't tell that part of the story, but you told me that. That's when I discovered I had a bald spot back there.
Yeah, big old bald spot. While you, with no bald spot, were kicking the shit out of me. And I think Mr. Spielberg went, no. And he told me this later, or somebody told me this, that I actually did kind of lose that part.
Yeah.
Which, we both kind of lost parts to him, didn't we?
We all lost a lot of parts. When was the Danson DA in that chronology?
Before.
It was before that?
Yeah, the first thing.
But I hadn't seen it yet, I don't think. Or I would have been picking your brain, because that was really good. Nice work.
Good. Larry cast it. Yeah. No, I'd done, I think, The Onion Field, and then I did a bunch of episodics, and that's how I met you.
Yes.
And then 8 years later, we did it again. But let me stay with Magnum for a second.
Yeah, please.
First off, I saw you and took note of you on Rockford. I loved James Gardner, and I loved Rockford.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know if this is going to work. And then you just stole the show. That was a huge part for you. Yes?
It was a very big deal. I had, Steve Cannell became a really good friend. He cast me in 2 pilots, both with James Whitmore Jr., Jimmy Whitmore.
Right.
And they were the first 2 pilots that Steve ever wrote that didn't sell, because he sold everything he wrote. Yeah. And he felt really bad. And he called me up and he said, I wrote this thing on Rockford. I think it's okay. Let me send it to you. And it was a spoof on the same kind of cliches that the grappling hook was. And
the perfect specimen of a human being, perfect detective, the opposite of James Gardner.
Lance White on white, nearly perfect. And to work with Garner, I mean, it was really I was to the point where I was getting bigger jobs and figured, well, maybe I'll get a shot. And to work with him on his set, I understood that doing a lead involves leadership.
Right.
Because that's what he did. I mean, he was always hurting from something. His knees hurt, his back's hurt, but he'd put on a happy face. And I thought of it and thought of Jim many times when I started Magnum, because,
you are the host.
Yeah. And I told a friend whose husband was a really good actor, Danny Jansen, and David had died, but I said, I got this pilot and it's really neat. I got this narration. And Danny says, well, you know what that means, don't you? You're going to be in every shot.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, great. That's fantastic. And then you get to about episode 5 and you're dying.
Yeah.
And I realized what it was. But, actually, everybody's taken their mood really off of you when you show up. Yes. And if you put on a happy face, it not only helps them, it helps you.
And the crew is there 15 hours a day, and you are the family. You are a family together. And if it's a bad place to come work, that's horrible.
Well, I'm happy to say that Magnum and Blue Bloods, I hope I had something to do with it, were good places to work. There was no pot-stirring nonsense that I'm sure you came across and I came across guesting on a lot of shows.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Benson. I walked to do a guest spot on Benson.
Yeah.
Which was a half-hour sitcom, and good, and everyone was great. But on the mirror in my little, cubbyhole, guest star cubbyhole, was someone had written with a magic marker, 1 day left of this place, and I'm out. And it was like, shoot.
It's absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
I did the movie Myra Breckenridge. I was in it for a cup of coffee, but I got to work with Mae West. But that picture was in horrible trouble. And all we did was sit around, and Mae West is writing her own stuff, and Raquel Welch is writing her own stuff. And it was just, the only good part of it was I was on a day player's salary, and it was about 2 weeks before I ever worked. So
right.
Had they known, they would have put me on a weekly and I would have made less money.
Now, one of the notes about that particular film was you got it because of Mae West's encouragement or something. Is there a story there, Tom, you want to tell us?
Yeah. Well, it was really funny. I mean, I'm under contract to Fox in the new talent program. My friend Sam and I were both under contract, and they disbanded the talent program. And after 2 years there, they just when our options ran out, we had 6-month options, they just fired us. So now I get fired, and I get 2 jobs right away at Fox.
At Fox.
I hadn't worked at Fox my whole time there. One was a show called Lancer, which everybody remembers now because of DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, and because that's a TV show he was doing. And the other was to go see Mae West. So I knew my agent secretary very well. Actually, she was more available than he was for me. But so she says, you have an appointment for Myra Breckenridge with Mae West at 8 p.m. in her dressing room. And you could kind of hear her eyebrows raise. And she kidded me a lot. And I didn't know what to expect. It's Mae West, for God's sakes. Yeah. Well, it just turned out she doesn't get up till about noon. And she's up. So I go in and meet her.
Yeah.
And that was about it. And then I thought I was done, there was about 800 guys there, all auditioning for one of 7 parts, all titled Young Stud number 1, Young Stud number 2. So I go, and then I get a call from my agent secretary. She says, you have an appointment with Mae West at her apartment at 8 p.m. So I don't know what to expect, and it just turned out it was
above board.
Above board, yeah. Everything in her apartment was white. She was wearing white. The piano was white. There was a big piano in there. Anyway, long story short, she said, "Would you read with me?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I read with her, but as soon as, Mae didn't talk like Mae West. She was more Brooklyn.
Right.
And then I started to read and she became Mae West. And it freaked me out and I started laughing and apologized. And it turned out she wrote that scene and she thought I was laughing at the material.
Yeah.
And then she said, and this is what got me the part. She's leaning on the piano. She said, "Come here." And I come over to her and she says, "Put your hands on my waist." So I did that and she says, "Now spread your legs." So I did. And then she looked over at my shoulder, at her assistant on the couch, said, "This is going to work." She was concerned that I was too tall.
Yeah.
But she liked me.
We should say that Mae West in the 30s, 40s was one of the biggest kind of bawdy sex symbols, W.C. Fields. And
and she got away with murder.
Yeah.
I mean, she could get away with stuff. You always felt you were watching something you weren't allowed to see.
Yeah. Double entendre. Everything. Yeah. But she was at that time, I don't know, 65.
Yeah, but she wanted to appear bigger than she was. She was a tiny woman.
Yeah.
And so once I spread my legs, I got the part. I made that up just now.
The last thing, but not the spread. She did make you stand that way, though.
Yeah, I was standing like this, and it made me shorter.
Yeah, I love that. You work hard for your money, Nick. So when it comes to your wireless plan, why would you give away your hard-earned money to big wireless? It's time to make the switch to consumer cellular.
I feel like you're talking to me, not the listener. Now you're just talking to me.
I'm working you. I
Okay.
tell you, you're going to be switching before you even know it. Consumer cellular offers the same fast, reliable, nationwide coverage as big wireless at up to half the cost, and without the hidden fees or confusing long-term contracts. With a flexible data plan, you only pay for the data you use, not the data you don't, because that's just how it should be.
Yeah.
There's so many things to be proud of and happy to be a spokesperson for this organization.
I can feel the conviction.
I know. It's really
It's
true.
really coming across the table.
Genuine. Yes,
Yeah.
good. And, people would have believed it if you hadn't pointed that out. Now it seems like you have to point it out because they don't believe
Now it seems fake.
For a limited time, you can sign up with Consumer Cellular and save $50 with promo code TED50.
Visit consumercellular.com/TED50 or call 1-888-FREEDOM and mention promo code TED50.
That's consumercellular.com/TED50. Promo code TED50. Terms and conditions apply.
Savings based on Consumer Cellular's single line 1, 5, and 10 gigabyte data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to T-Mobile and Verizon's lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans, January 2024.
So let's stay in this moment, though. When did you're doing Magnum again. When did you know that you'd been shot out of a cannon? When did you, because you weren't in the States, so you didn't get, the Hollywood, oh my God, Tom Selleck. You got it to some degree, but when did you know your life was forever different?
I really think there was a period, there was a big actor strike that lasted for 4 or 5 months. So we were already supposed to start. So I had this kind of melancholy period in Hawaii, knowing I knew enough about work and stuff to know that if the show was a failure, millions of people were going to see it. My life was going to be different. So it wasn't from interviews or anything else. It was really knowing that. And then, like I say, by the time we were third show into Waikiki, where we like to shoot and all,
right, You got mobbed.
But and then I didn't realize till I went back and somebody said,
"You are huge."
Yeah, I forget what. I went back to
an award show, maybe.
Yeah, it was. I think the first People's Choice Awards, where I was the newcomer.
Right.
And I think that I went, oh, holy shit! I'm just
because you were arguably one of the biggest stars in the world. No, it was huge. That was absolutely huge.
Yeah,
but it sat on you well, or was it hard to walk around being? You can't duck and hide at 6'4".
I didn't like it.
Yeah. Why?
Mainly because of family and a sense of privacy, and I started asking questions in interviews that I didn't want to say, give an answer to, and I said, you better find a way and find a line about what you're going to talk about. I didn't always succeed, but it just grew, and I still can't quite describe it, but I wasn't going through it every day. I had a lovely house in Hawaii. It was a tiny little house. It was a 1-bedroom house. I rented it. I later bought it. It's the first house I could ever afford. And I belonged to a place called the Outrigger Canoe Club. And that was local people.
Yeah.
And they kind of knew I was an actor, but that time, while the actors were on strike and we couldn't start shooting, was great.
Yeah.
I actually was living Magnum's life.
Yeah.
at
Minus
the beach
Ferrari,
and
maybe.
stuff, and so it was really I don't know, a lot to adjust to. I think I don't know how people say the same show was in LA and it got the same kind of heat.
Yeah,
I don't know how people do that.
Yeah.
I had this huge buffer, and it was a blessing.
But you would go home. Did you work the first hiatus, the first summer? What you made a film? What do you remember?
I made a film, High Road to China.
Right. This is where Mary Steenburgen comes in, my wife.
Really?
Because she sat down with. Well, first off, here, everyone claims a little story, I'm sure, but this being Mary, I'm sure.
Well, I'm a huge fan.
I know,
as you know.
But you said in some interview article or something, somebody asked a silly question like, if you were stranded on a desert island, who would you want it to be with? And you said Mary Steenburgen, which got her attention. It did get her attention. So then when she sat down with you, this was her interpretation at some lunch or something. She said it felt like you looked at her, and she's a very nervous, very shy person that sometimes gets interpreted as, cold, judgmental. Or so these are her words, not mine. And so she thought, oh, I blew it. That's her story, Tom Selleck's story.
Well, I don't think she blew it. I can't remember the movie that she had done.
I think it was High Road to China.
No, her movie.
Oh, her movie.
She had just kind of burst on the scene. I think she got nominated.
She got an Oscar for, somebody in Howard. Go ahead, help me. Oh my God, this is horrible. You should keep.
You're like me with names.
No, you should keep this in so she can tell me what an idiot I am.
I had seen that, and I was a big fan.
Yeah.
I did High Road with Bess Armstrong.
Yes.
Who I
wonderful.
saw in Four Seasons before that.
Yeah.
With my friend Carol Burnett and Jack Weston, who was in High Road, was in Four Seasons also. Right. I mean, so anyway, that's kind of inside baseball. But
let me back up.
Yeah.
Let me back up. So this is my impression of you, which, no, I'm not going to do an impression, but my impression of you has always been that you are in the best old-fashioned sense of the word, a gentleman.
Thank you.
You are. You're an old-fashioned gentleman. And where did that come from, is my question. What was your mom and dad? I met your dad once, I think. But where did that come from? Where did your moral center?
I think it came from my family. I was lucky. I could go into analysis for 20 years and not blame my parents for anything. And they were great. I've been working on a book, so I've been thinking about a lot of that stuff. And I remember early on, my dad, it was just important to be accountable for your acts. He held us accountable. I wouldn't say he was strict, but he was, whatever they did, I felt when I screwed up, which I did lots,
Right.
I'd probably get punished, but I didn't care about that. I cared about letting them down.
Right.
I remember I was like 7 or something, and I was playing baseball in the street. We lived on a little residential block, and we weren't supposed to, but we did anyway. And I got a hold of one, and I broke a window down the street. And everybody scattered, and we all ran into our house and everything. And I told my mom, and she said, well, thank you for telling me, but we'll see what happens when your dad gets home. And she says, I said, are you going to tell him? She said, no, you are.
Oh, good one. Good one, Mom.
So my dad, I told him, and he said, thanks for telling me. I'll see you in the morning. It was a Saturday, and we got up, and he took me down to the house and said, no, tell him. Knocked on their door, and I opened the door. I said, I'm the guy who broke your window. I don't want to cry. But after we did that, he said, no, come on. And he put me in the car, and we went to the hardware store. First, he showed me how to measure the window, and we bought some glass and glazer's points and window putty. And he went down and fixed the window with me because he was very handy. He worked as a carpenter before he got into real estate. So that,
That to me feels like the most perfect parenting example you could come up with.
The other one I remember was my brother Bob, who was 19 months older than me. And we were very young. We were like 8 or something, but getting full of ourselves, And my dad said, I want you to come down to City Hall with me. I got a tour. So we go down to City Hall in Van Nuys, little City Hall, and gives me the tour, gives me the tour of the police department. He says, it's yes, sir, no, sir. So we did that. And he says, can I take him downstairs? And the cop said, sure. So the guy goes down with my dad to the jail cells. And he says, can they go in and just see what it's like being in a cell? And the cop says, sure. And he had a little smile on his face, the cop. So we go in the cell, and my dad says, okay, lock him up. And they shut that door and left for a while. I mean, for 5 minutes, you go, okay, he's coming back now. Yeah. So you get to be about 20 minutes, and it was, finally we heard footsteps coming down, and I think my dad said, I don't think I have to say anything.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What a great story.
It is? I put it in the book, so I hope it is.
Yeah.
It's called You Never Know.
You never know. Why that?
An accidental career. I was studying business at SC and ended up through just pure serendipity signing a contract with a studio. I'd never thought about acting or wanted to or anything else.
Someone spotted you doing what?
I did the dating game.
Oh, that's right. That's a famous
Lost
clip.
Twice. Yeah, but they you know what they do with all this stuff? You get it. It's suddenly I was an All-American basketball player at SC and was discovered on the dating game and then got Magnum. And that's not
the story.
But they inflate all this stuff. Number one, I rode the Pine at SC and only had a scholarship for one semester. So it just gets crazy. So I'm trying to straighten all that out. But what were we talking about?
But stick with sports for a second.
Yeah.
Back then, volleyball. Were you a big-time volleyball player then? Because I know you were.
I played volleyball on the beach at Will Rogers State Park in L.A. Before Magnum days.
After
I wasn't
USC?
very good, but
after college, you did this, or
I played basketball at SC. I also played volleyball. We had to raise money because it wasn't an NC2A sport and borrow old uniforms from the basketball team. But I played for SC for 2 years, and we started the sport there. So that was indoor, though.
Yeah.
Indoor 6-man.
Yeah.
And then I played 2-man at the beach, but I wasn't really that good. I was very good indoors because I could jump.
You could spike.
Tell Woody I could jump. I saw his movie. So basically, I started playing at Outrigger in the sand. They have 2 sand courts above their parking garage, and that was one of my saviors. Just playing. So we got pretty good, and at Outrigger in the men's seniors, we won 2 national championships.
That's good. Wow.
Well, I've never played for all the marbles till then. It was the men's seniors. It was 35 and over, but I was playing with ex-Olympians and All-American players and stuff. So it was really fun.
Yeah, I was basketball was going to be my life, which was very silly because I fell in love with basketball in high school. It was a prep school. There were 300 boys. So any run-of-the-mill high school could have just kicked our ass.
Yeah.
But it was my life. I loved it. I just dreamt that. And I had no other sport. Went to Stanford. My friend and I, who was a good athlete, went, all right, let's go try out for freshman ball.
Yeah.
This was the same year that Lou Alcindor was a freshman at UCLA.
Yes.
So I stepped to the court and I looked around and I just went, oh, shoot. Turned around, walked out, and that was the end of my dream.
Well, basketball was I had played baseball forever, Little League and everything else, and burned out a little bit on it, and started doing really well in high school in basketball. So that was my sport, but I was a 6'4" forward at that time in the Pac-8.
Ooh, that's a big deal, by the way, Pac-8.
It is a big deal. But I just realized, now the guys I'm playing against are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9".
6'4".
That's my brush with greatness, though.
Tell me.
Well, Alcindor, Kareem, was at UCLA. And when we were preparing for the team we were going to play the next week, the guys who weren't going to play a lot, me, and a bunch of other guys, would learn basically the UCLA offense as much as we could, and we'd run it against our first team.
Right.
And none of them were very big, so when we prepared for UCLA, I was
Mr. Skyhook.
Lou Alcindor. I've told him I got to know Kareem. So he laughs. But that was my job.
Yeah. Did you develop a skyhook or not?
Well, it was a tough job because we had a 7-footer. He wasn't quite as agile as Lou Alcindor, but his elbows were right about head height for me.
Yeah. Boom.
Yeah. So, a lot of booms.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's skip ahead a little bit. 3 Men and a Baby.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. I don't know if it was a big deal for you. It was a big deal
movie.
movie.
It was a huge deal for me.
Yeah. I mean, it was $160+ million kind of back then.
210 worldwide.
Oh, wow. So
and the number one movie in the world.
Yes. So that's a big deal for you too. How did that come about for you? Because I know there was a mishmash of directors and it all kind of fell apart and came together.
I got a call from my dear friend and agent, Betty McCart, and she said, Jeffrey Katzenberg wants to come to Hawaii. And I said, Jeffrey Katzenberg wants to come to Hawaii? He says, yeah, he wants to talk to you about a project. I thought it was about development and stuff, but I was impressed. Yeah. I said, sure. So after work, I went to a meeting. They had just gotten off a plane, and it was him and Colleen Serrault, who directed the original 3 Men in a Cradle. And we just sat down, and I wish I could do every movie for Jeffrey, because he kind of executive produces every movie he does. And work was very good for me when I was working for Jeffrey, and I appreciate that. So he's talking, he's very convincing. And I thought, well, I said, so I know you want to think about this, but I'm interested. Colleen Serrault is very quiet, very serious, very French.
Yeah.
And he says, no, I want you to do it. I said, okay, well, who are you going to get for the other 2 bachelors? And you may not know this.
I don't know this.
He said Ted Danson and Steve Guttenberg. And there's something about Jeffrey where I knew that's who he'd get.
Yeah, because he hadn't.
You didn't know.
No, you were they had to get you.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah. But that was his dream team.
Right.
It's nice you were on it.
Really nice.
Yeah. So I said, it's okay with me.
Yeah.
And they left, and they got on a plane.
Wow.
Colleen Serrault was very serious. And there is a danger in somebody making the same movie twice. Eventually, I wasn't in on any of this. I'm doing Magnum, but from what I heard, it was getting it wasn't going to be a Jeffrey-like movie. And as he explained to me later, she had this concept that she wanted to turn their apartment, it should represent a female womb. She was getting really serious about it.
Sure wasn't how it ended up.
No.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I said, so what are you going to do? I think he called me. And he said, well, I got a new director, very excited about it, Leonard Nimoy. And I didn't know Leonard. I just knew he was Spock. But I think he didn't have a lot of prep. And I think Leonard saved that movie. He really knew his chops. He knew his stuff.
Yeah.
And his concept of how to use the babies. I've worked with babies in a few scenes and everything else before that, and much since. But you usually rehearse with a doll and pretend the baby's there when they're shooting your coverage.
Yeah.
But our babies were there.
And
it created, they were there all the time. And I remember blocking a scene with a doll, but from then on, they were in the scene, and I think that was the key to
no
the
matter
movie.
what the business was, whether you were holding up your hand to catch a bottle that was being thrown to you while you're holding the baby or making phone calls.
Yeah. What you must get this a lot. I get it a little. But the ghost thing just got crazy. Have you been asked that everywhere you go?
Used to be, yeah. And I have to admit, when you go back and you look at it, you get chills. It's a little spooky. It's a little spooky.
Well, you were playing, as I recall, a vain actor. I don't know where they got that concept for an actor.
Either. I think it was, that's all I could do.
Posters of yourself all over the
cutouts.
Yeah.
Also, life-size cutouts or short cutouts of me in my commercials. And there was one that was about, 6, 7-year-old boy size. And
it's very scary.
Yeah.
I guess it was great for, maybe Jeffrey thought of that.
Somebody did, because the rentals back in the VCR days, the rentals went through the roof. I also remember going out with you and Steve. I think it was before we went out with Leonard and out to dinner in Toronto. We shot in Toronto.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why some kid didn't die in this building in New York, because we shot it.
Because it was on a soundstage.
Yeah. But you were, I think this was right when you shot your final episode of Magnum, and then came
first year and came right there.
So you were huge, and we'd go out and Steve and I would giggle over how invisible we became around you. Then we went out to dinner with Leonard, the three of us.
Yeah.
And all three of us disappeared into the backdrop. He was so popular.
Leonard is such a good guy.
Yeah,
People's got this Spock impression, and he's a fine actor and a fine director, but
and an amazing photographer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it your suite?
Yes.
Where we had the parties?
Yeah.
And I don't know why everybody was up in Toronto. Was there a strike?
22 production. Yeah, maybe there was.
It was either a strike or it had gotten so cheap they wouldn't go anywhere else. But it was wonderful.
We'd have every actor in town come to these parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, every Saturday, because I had this huge, massive living room.
Yes, you did.
And the Sutton, I think it was a Sutton place. Yeah. Had, back then in the glory days, had a butler.
Yes.
Werner?
Our floors, Werner. It's Werner.
Yeah.
Spelled with a W. And the top floors had the butler.
Yeah. It was very rock and roll. It really was. Yeah.
It was. And I think that's where I really met Woody.
Yeah, he came to visit.
Because he came up a couple times.
Yeah. Jeffrey Katzenberg's story. I remember he was famous for his 60-second phone calls.
Yeah.
He would check in with everybody. He'd check in with me. But it was a 60-second phone call.
Yeah.
Packed, very sweet, and he was gone. But when we did Three Men and a Lady, 2 or 3 years later, we were sitting we'd shot it, and it felt really good. And it was a good movie. And we were sitting in a commissary, and it was about to come out. And I was saying, so how's it looking? He said, we're the 100-pound gorilla in the room. We are. It's looking really good. There's something, Home Alone, I think is the name of this movie coming, but we're not worried about it.
Robert Court, who produced both movies, was a worrier. And he was just going, Home Alone. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, this is before it ever came out.
Yeah. Cleaned our clocks.
Yeah. No, Jeffrey called me a bunch of times. He'd call me with grosses every week.
Yeah.
But quickly.
Yes. He did that for me too, but not on the second movie. Because
they didn't want to talk about the grosses on this. The second movie did okay, but he thought they had another blockbuster. I think they took it for granted too.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to jump now. Jump. I mean, you were born to be in a saddle.
Yes.
You were born to be a Western hero. You weren't. Really? Was that riding horseback? Was that an acquired skill for you?
Well, other than going to the ponies at Griffith Park where they strap you into a pony and go around. Yeah. I mean, I think I did a couple commercials, but in a commercial, if you sit on a horse, they only need like 2-3 seconds.
Yeah.
So that isn't a big deal. But then I got cast in the Sackets with Sam,
right,
my pal. And I was going to be working with Ben Johnson, Academy Award winner, and Glenn Ford. And it was a big deal, but I learned from the ground up. I had some days before we started, and a woman named Donna Hall, a wrangler, her husband was the chief wrangler on the show. She just started me out and said, first of all, she taught me how to get on and get off. And then for a couple days, it was all about sitting a horse and how to do it. And I said, when do I get to gallop? She said, 95% of what you do in a movie is riding to a mark, stopping, controlling your horse, and doing dialogue and getting on and getting off. When you can do that right, maybe I'll let you do that.
Oh, that was smart.
Well, Bob Totten, our director, he had done like 19 Gunsmokes. And I mean, he was going to ask us to do the real stuff. He didn't like stunt doubles. So it was really, and I was hooked forever.
Yeah. I grew up on horseback because I lived in Arizona. My friends were Hopi Navajo kids who lived in the museum property that I was growing up in because of my father. But my friends were also ranchers' sons and daughters. So we had horses, and my father wouldn't let me ride by myself with a saddle. If I was going to ride by myself, I had to ride bareback. That way, if I got thrown, I'd, break a bone maybe, but not get dragged.
But you wouldn't get caught in the stirrup.
Yeah, and get dragged. So I grew up with that. And I had one little movie for television called Cowboy, where I got to ride like the wind, and it just made me so happy, happy. But Quigley Down Under is truly one of those movies that I've watched, and not just because I know you and love you. It's a brilliant movie, and you were just astounding. Really good Western.
Thank you. I'm very, very proud of that movie. It's funny. I think it had been across a few desks.
It had.
Sean Connery, maybe Steve McQueen, I don't know.
And many directors.
Yes. And I was proud that they sent it to me, and I said, I got to do this. It was like fifth year of Magnum. When I first saw the script by John Hill. And but it's interesting, I said, boy, almost every part I've had like that when they're like iconic characters.
Right.
You go, well, Jimmy Stewart could have done this way better than I could. Or in this case, it was John Wayne. And I said, can I find my own way to do this, playing an admittedly iconic character? And, well, then you just do it and see what happens. But it was intimidating. A lot of parts have been that when I've got some of those bigger iconic guys. I didn't think of Magnum as iconic. I guess you ended up that way.
But that was a brilliant. How long where'd you shoot that? In Australia, but where?
About 4 months in the outback of Australia.
Right. With Alan Rickman, who's one of the best bad guys ever.
And a prince of a guy.
Yes.
I'm so sad he's gone. And he told me that movie changed his life. He just loved it out there. Loved horses. The outback, there's nothing going on.
Yeah.
It's 17,000 people, I think, in Alice Springs in the dead center of the country. And then just miles and miles of desert. The rest of the, 20 million people in Australia all live on the coast.
Where did you stay? Where did they put you? Was there a town?
At a Sheraton there, but there was a airline strike. So we didn't even have groups of tourists coming in and out. Yeah. But it was great. Really hard work. They called it bull dust. The soil in Australia is very old. It's some of the oldest land on Earth. And this powdery red dust that would just get all over you. So you'd come in at night after long rides. We'd ride for 2 hours to get to these unbelievable locations.
Right.
And then 2 hours home. So a cold beer was really, and a couple of cold beers in the bar were just a treat. And guess who you're in the bar with? your crew.
Yeah.
And but they're a great group of guys.
What was the rifle? I remember being like, that
it's
is
a Sharps rifle. I had done a lot of research, and I'd seen a lot of Westerns where they were using the wrong stuff.
Right.
There's a movie I love called Veracruz with Gary Cooper and Burt Lancaster. Well, that's I think 1860s, and they're using 1892 Winchesters and 1873 Colts, and it just ain't right. And the Sharps was the right gun, and it was legendary. The Sharps in those days
because of the distance.
Because the distance, it was famous. It's one of the reasons we almost lost all our buffalo. I just started watching the documentary on that because it was so accurate. But they'd never seen anything like it over there. Right. And I talked to Simon Windsor, our director, who
did a great job.
Great guy, and did a great job. And we decided to make it, to not unveil it. It was in a sheath when he gets off the boat, and for quite a while.
Yeah.
And Simon really got it. That we got nominated for an Academy Award for sound, actually, because he was shooting at such long distances.
Yes.
Simon realized that the person who gets hit with a bullet hasn't heard the rifle yet.
Yeah. God, that's amazing.
So you got the rifle impact, you got the bullet impact on the guy, and then you hear the gun go off.
Right.
And he just did great stuff. But Laura was great, Laura Sanchicomo. And Alan. And Alan kind of, he'd done Die Hard. That's where I said, you got to get that guy. Because he made a heavy, intelligent.
And highly entertaining.
Yeah, always entertaining, because he was really asking Quigley. I mean, it's really a good film, and he's brilliant in it, but he was doing the same scene over and over and over again, kind of to prove he's bad, but he did it with such relish.
Yeah.
Did you work with Alan?
For a day on something I can't even remember, but he was so open and available to tell stories, and just a sweet, sweet man. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a wonderful experience. Yeah. And my daughter got 2 first birthdays.
Hannah.
Well, because when we left to go home, it was her first birthday. But by the time we got to LA, you save a day.
All right.
So she had 2 first birthdays.
Was that first? She was 1 when you were down there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a big deal, and it was a big Western. And there's a guy, there's a reviewer, Gary Franklin.
Yeah.
Where he said, on my scale, 10 being best. Well, he had beat me up all my life. And he gave it a 10.
That's good.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's funny how that happens.
It didn't get a very good release. It competed with us, and
really?
3 Men and a Little Lady, and it competed with Dances with Wolves.
Oh wow!
And they should have realized they didn't expect it to be as good as it was.
Yeah,
but it's become. When video rentals were the deal, you could never get it in the store. It just was always out.
Yeah. No, I mean it. I've watched it.
Thank you.
Maybe a dozen times.
So have I.
Yeah. That's funny. Okay. So Blue Bloods, who knew? Did you know this was are you about to do a 14th season?
Yeah. I didn't know much of anything. When Leonard, not Leonard Nimoy, Leonard
Goldberg.
I get called in, and they want me to do this part. And there were two issues. One, I said, where are you going to shoot this? Because I liked the script. It had a procedural element, but it was really about
family.
Character.
Yeah.
And because I don't want to do procedural. And I said, where are you going to shoot this? It should be shot in New York because the city has got to be, it's like a Western. The land is a central character in the show, and so it's New York. He said New York, but I think I have a way to make that work. Because I said I don't want to do that to my family, So I've done it to my family for 13 years, but they worked it out. We do 8-day shows. I do, say, the last 4 one and the first 4 the next, and then I commute, which I've done for.
But you'll have 10 days or so at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it had potential. And, there was always a push at the network to keep turning it more like the rest of their shows. There were some pretty good fights on that. When I say fights, I mean ethical fights.
Right.
Where you go back and forth and you say no, and politely.
Yeah.
And we ended up winning out and doing the show we thought. I always kidded Leonard because I was, when I did a Charlie's Angels where I was going to be Jackie Smith's boyfriend. And I was very enthused because besides working with Jackie Smith, it was going to recur because they were going to get them involved with personal lives. And after the first one, they said, they're not going to use you again. Leonard Goldberg.
Not crazy about you.
No. So Leonard fired me from that one. So now he's my boss. Leonard's gone now, but he was really on top of
he was one of the gentlemen in our business.
Yeah.
He cast me in something about Amelia, which was the incest.
I know the movie well.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I think there was an Emmy there.
A Golden Globe.
Oh.
It was a Golden Globe. But who remembers that? Other than the fact that it's right in front of our TV. We have put our awards in our little TV, our private TV room kind of thing, right? Yeah. To the point where we can't quite, and I have my Emmys and Golden Globes over here surrounding her Oscar that she won. And it just doesn't work. There's something about an Oscar, man, just cuts through all the other awards.
That's the real deal.
Yeah. But I had so much respect for Leonard, and I do miss him. Yeah.
I was hosting the Emmys when you at least came up on stage for something about Amelia. The same year, I think.
Yeah.
Carol Burnett called me, and she was sick. She had some kind of virus, and she said they're starting rumors that I'm dying. She said, I'm not dying, but it was kind of like I can't remember some of the viruses that were going around, those that lasted a while.
Yeah.
And she said, so you gotta host the show for me.
Oh, wow. At last minute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't have mattered if I had a year to prepare.
That's a tough
It's not my bag.
Yeah.
I was scared to death, and I just talked as fast as I could.
Yeah.
But that was the year I won Miami.
Oh, really? Nice.
And
maybe I should have hosted.
I was backstage waiting to come out again.
Right.
The nice thing is John and Larry and Roger were backstage with me because they were going to come out and present.
Your co-stars.
And I had they said, this is, if you win, I said, oh, come on. I've done this 3 or 4 times. I'm not going to win.
Yeah.
So don't worry about it. They said, well, just know you get your Emmy on one side of the stage and you have to run to the other side. I said, okay. And I won. And I've never got to do the walk, where you're in your chair.
Yeah, yeah.
And you got that awful camera right in your face, pretending they aren't there, and then you're so happy somebody else won.
And people grab your hand as you walk by.
Yeah, well, so I never got to do the walk.
Yeah.
Because I was backstage.
Right.
And I don't remember a lot of it. I didn't really have any speech whatsoever, and I didn't really get to take in the audience.
I know what you mean.
But maybe you never do.
I got nominated
a bunch of times.
Like 14 times, I think, altogether. But 9 in a row for Cheers and didn't win. And then when I won, people kept saying, "Oh, but you have 8 of these, right?" People don't. Everybody at an award show is so into their own head and nervousness and fear that they don't really take in anything. People thought I won all the time, and I thought, well, why couldn't you just sit there, relax for a minute, and just look at the people applauding? Yeah.
You know. Now, all I could think of, you're hosting, and they said you got to run to the other side of the stage to introduce the next award.
Yeah. Tommy Lee Jones had the best. It was just, thank you for the work, and turned around.
I heard William Holden said, thank you.
And left. Yeah, that's very cool.
Instead of thanking your agent and everybody who could give you a job.
Looking back at old-time 40s, 50s movie stars, who are Jimmy Stewart? You mentioned Jimmy. He was one of my
Jimmy Stewart,
all-time favorites.
John Wayne.
Bogart.
Oh, yeah. And then I always felt, if you get asked what actress is your favorite actress, or who would you like to work with most? I said, you can't answer that question. But Lillian Gish, I can't.
Mary got to work with Lillian.
Oh,
just fell
I would
in
have
love.
killed to work with Lillian Gish.
Barbara
Jean
Stanwyck.
Tierney.
Barbara
Stanwyck.
Judy.
Jean Arthur.
Jean Arthur. Oh, my gosh.
I mean, they were amazing. And Irene Dunn.
Unbelievable. I love Mary. Mary will leave the room and the news is on, and I click immediately to TCM or and she comes back in and goes, "Oh, I see you're watching some black and white films again," and they're so comforting to me.
They are, and I'm just old now, or older, or whatever you want to say, but I look at previews, the movies coming on, and it's just a bunch of gimmicks and effects, and oh my God, that person can fly, and the wings come out of nowhere, and I'm just kind of sick of that. And they really were good stories.
Yeah,
be they funny. Most of the really good comedies can do both. Even today, make you laugh or cry at the same time. You guys could do that. And Cheers.
Yeah.
And Friends could do that.
Friends. Well, that was a hoot for you. How many shows did you do of Friends?
9.
And was that counting? Your first stepping out in front of a live audience?
I had done Taxi.
What'd you play in Taxi? I
played, it was kind of Memories of Cab such and such, whatever the number was, because the cab just got totaled and everybody told stories. I was with Mary Lou Henner driving, and I was in the back seat, and it freaked me out because the audience was right there.
Yeah.
Because the way it was set up, and I got flop sweat, and I mean, really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you say, don't sweat, it gets worse.
Yeah.
So that was my last experience. And
Jimmy Burrows, did Jimmy Burrows direct that one? Do you remember?
No, Jimmy didn't direct it. I wish he did. Yeah. Good guy. Michael Lembeck directed the first one. And he said, now when you come into the set, we're not going to introduce you.
Right.
When you come into the set, everybody's going to go nuts. I said, oh, come on. He said, just be prepared. Don't let it throw you. And the audience went nuts and all. The hardest thing I had to deal with was the waiting. Well, you say something and it's funny.
Oh, the waiting. Yes, gotcha.
It isn't real.
Yeah.
And I've got to find the comedy and tragedy and the tragedy and comedy. It's the only.
Yeah.
I can't do shtick. What was your show, The Good Place?
Yeah.
I got the title right, which wasn't such a good place.
No, it turned out not to be.
I love that show.
Yeah, it's good. Thanks. I used to, on Cheers, make sure that I had a piece of business, whatever it was that I could, because if the joke was really good and people laughed, you still, like you said, didn't want to sit there waiting. You wanted to have something more important to do. And if the joke sucked, you wanted to really have something more important to go back to. I remember on Cheers, because it was the bar and all of that, so it was like theater. You had to be everybody on the set, which was large, had to be active. They had to be acting at all times. So if you had a good joke, you would all of a sudden notice that Woody or Rhea or somebody would be, all of a sudden there'd be people crossing right behind you, right at the good joke. And if you had a sucko joke, you'd turn around and there'd be no one. They were ducking down, disappearing.
I used Cheers a lot as an example. We'd get these guest directors and they would, a lot of my scenes are in my office as the police commissioner and Blue Bloods. So they would constantly have somebody come in the office, walk and sit down, and they wouldn't cover the entrance with all the subtext and all. And I said, the scene doesn't start when they sit at my desk. The scene started at the door.
Right.
And I just hammered them with that. And I said, in Cheers, the scene starts when they come in the room, not when they sit down at the bar.
Right.
And I used that over and over again. And I think I've got him trained now.
He loves Cheers. Just do what he says. All right. What are you, you're writing a book?
I've written a book.
Oh.
I actually finished.
Now you wrote it.
I wrote it. I have a collaborator, but I realized very early on, basically the way we work, and I couldn't do it without him, is I write something.
Right.
I go to him, we go over it, and I bounce it off of him, and that's it. So yes, I wrote it. And because I didn't want to, the audience is on, the reader is on to, readers' audiences, they're on to all this stuff where, I wrote a book. Actually, it's a series of books.
Yeah.
Yes, some other guy helped me write it, and a ghostwriter wrote the whole thing, and I just didn't want to do that.
No.
That I got to give him credit. Ellis Hennigan, real good writer anyway. I don't think I could have done it without bouncing off of him.
Right.
I never really considered writing a book. I mean, I didn't become a heroin addict and lose my career for 10 years and have a great story. I just worked.
There is time, there is time. Tom in his 80s turned to heroin.
Yeah.
And how long did that take, that book?
Well, because of COVID, I envisioned sitting down with the collaborator in my dressing room. Sometimes if I finish early, he's in New York, I'm in New York.
Yeah.
We had protocols. You couldn't get near our set or anything. There was COVID and a bunch of stuff. And the last year was very difficult because there were some pretty serious negotiations, which are still going on in some ways. But it took me about 4 years.
Did you enjoy it?
No.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it.
Yes.
Somebody told me, who knows something about writing, they said autobiographies are hard.
Yeah.
Because at least for me, it was, because you have to kind of relive a lot of stuff. All those things to make them come alive, especially, like I say, I wasn't shooting up heroin or something.
Right.
I just had a drama at work.
Right.
So if they don't get inside your head, you don't really have a book that's worth reading. So it involved a lot of emotional investment. I'd write for a couple hours a day when I was behaving myself, and I'd be exhausted.
Yeah.
Real brain dead exhaustion,
Yeah.
And it was very, a lot of tears sometimes. I'd read everything to Jilly. I'd come back. It was about dinner time, and I'd read the pages that I did, and I just couldn't get through some of them. A lot of them, actually. And just that story I told you about my dad, I couldn't read it to Jilly. I couldn't finish the sentence. You just choke up. So, yeah, I'm very proud of it. But I don't know whether I liked it or not. I didn't like the deadlines and stuff.
Let's jump back for a second with Jilly. You met how and when?
Well, I met Jilly.
Was it before?
I saw Jilly. I didn't meet her. I went to, John Hillerman told me on Magnum, he said, when you go to London, because I was going to do a picture over there called Lassiter.
Right.
And he said, when you go to London, you must see Cats. It's unique. So I put it on my list, and one night I had some time, and one of my really good friends, my makeup man, Lon Bentley, who lived down the street from me.
Please say hi to Lon for me.
I will say hi to Lon.
Go on.
Great guy, as you know.
Yes.
And he lived down the street from me in Hawaii. So I said, come on with me. I'll buy dinner afterwards. So we went, and I noticed. How big do you want to make this story? Because it's complicated.
You've married her and stayed married for long. It's a big story.
I love the show, but I found that one particular cat on stage I would notice. She looked really good in a leotard, but they all did. And a guy named Brian Blessed, good actor, was in a movie, the first movie I did, High Road to China. And he was old Deuteronomy in Cats. So I went backstage to talk to Brian. And I was single, and High Road was very difficult. So I didn't have any free time. So it wouldn't have hurt to meet somebody. So I go back, and Brian he loved mountain climbing, passionate about it.
Yeah.
And he gets into mountain climbing and Everest and all. So he says, look, when you get to the carabiners and the things, and it's now like a half an hour. And I finally just said to him in the program, I said, who is that? Because I noticed this cat, real personality. You could see it through all the whiskers and stuff. And he says, oh, that's Jilly Mack. She's probably crazy about you. As a matter of fact, all the girls are, but I know you get a lot of that, so I told them all to go away. So it was deserted. Anyway, long story short, I went back a couple times.
Wow. And without seeing her, without her whiskers.
I loved the show.
Yeah.
I think it got a bad rap when they made it bigger and bigger. It was very intimate in London. So I really enjoyed the show. So Lon and I go back, and Jilly was always highly professional. But she's on stage, and at the very end, they're singing out to the audience. And I'd been watching her. In fact, somebody had said to her, one of the other dancers, one of the guys that she danced with, do you know who's staring at you? And she told me the story later. And she said, who? And he said, Tom Selleck. She said, who the fuck's that? She didn't know, which was a big plus.
Yeah.
At that point,
Yeah.
So anyway, at the very end, this goes on because I went to 8 shows, but at the very end of the show, at a certain point, she's singing and she just goes like this.
Right into your eyes.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
But no, not a long look, just a check out. And I said, Lon, did she just look at me? And he said she sure did. Anyway.
You dragged poor Lon to all 8 of them?
No, I've dragged Lon to probably 4 of them. But I actually only saw 7.5 because I had to work late.
Wait, now, so give me the actual meat.
The meat was after I knew the theater manager by then because he'd get me in the back way. And I said, is it okay to call someone? And he said, yeah, I'll give you the backstage number. So I called her up from Wales. My best friend from high school now had a farm in Wales. And I called from there and was very nervous. And she finally said, I'm about to go on. Would you like to take me out for a cocktail? Because I was hemming and hawing, and
right.
I'm not good at that. I don't know whether you are, but I'm not very smooth, and I'm pretty shy. So anyway, we went out, and Lon came along. I said, come on, Lon, you got to go with me. I don't know who this person is. And she showed up, and she had purple hair. She called it black tulip. And ate like a horse. She was hungry. And boy, they really, that show was wonderful. And
you've
obviously,
been together how long now?
38?
38 years. Tom.
No, maybe a little longer. Jilly can count. I can't.
Yeah. Please say hi to her.
I will. I'll see her whenever we're done.
Yeah. Hey, cannot thank you enough for doing this. Seriously, we have never, ever. I mean, this is the one thing I know that I like about podcasts because I'm finding my way and I keep going, is this a podcast? I'm not sure. It's a privilege to sit down with people uninterrupted and talk to them for an hour and a half or so. It really is. And this was a privilege. I've always admired you. We both share the same Annette Wolf, who is our publicist, who is one of the most gracious, wonderful people in our business. But
absolutely,
she keeps me posted on what you're doing and how you are. But it's really
likewise,
nice.
She does.
Yeah, so it's really nice to sit down with you.
It's great to sit down with you, and it's not. I've never got to do it really, and usually you're on a talk show and. Most of the hosts are looking over at their shoulder for the next question or the next joke, or you can't. No, you can't finish a story.
No, you're performing. You're not chatting. Yeah. Anyway, I adore you, my friend.
Great to see you.
You as well. Let's stay upright for another 15, 20 years.
Got to keep moving.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward.
Yeah.